Welcome to episode 2 of the People, Purpose, Profits Business Coaching Podcast. I'm Brian Buck, and you are?
Coach Kat.
All right. And today's episode, we are going to be talking about assumptions. Kat, what made you want to talk about assumptions?
One of the reasons actually is because I think it's hurting a lot of people. And you and I discussed, and you pretty much summed up everything I was talking about. So I want to allow you the chance to introduce it. And then we're going to talk about some assumptions that are really, really hurting entrepreneurs today.
Okay, great. Yeah, one of the things we were talking about is the number one assumption is that people can do it themselves. And solopreneur, even being a business owner, is hard work and alone work. I remember it was on LinkedIn a few months ago, but someone was creating a network for other leaders, saying it really is lonely at the top because you have different conversations. And when you're an entrepreneur, there's so many things to learn. There's so many things to support yourself that if you think you can do it alone, that assumption is going to delay you ever making money. It's going to probably, when the going gets tough and you have no support, because not everyone's spouses or family are like, yay, stick through it, right? Yeah, so I think assumptions really get in the way of the progress that could be made. What are some of the assumptions that you've seen that are problematic?
Well, one of them is that it's easy to be your own boss.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I find that that's one of the hardest things that people, especially when they start their own business, deal with. Because especially if you don't have the discipline of waking up and setting up boundaries and being organized, everything else is going to come into that. Because when you're working for someone else, they dictate your schedule. They, tell you how much you're getting paid. They're in charge of all of that. And all you have to do is basically show up and do your work. But when you're your own boss, you have to actually be in charge of that. And a lot of people underestimate the dedication and the discipline it takes to be your own boss.
Let me add to that too, is what I found coming from the corporate world. It's a very different energy. You may think, I get up on time, I'm focused, I get all these things done, I can do this, I do it there, I can do it here. And then, oh, I can sleep in, or I can decide to do these things. It's amazing when you are in charge completely, how many distractions actually exist
Right.
that you
Because
never
you have
noticed.
options that you didn't have before. You knew
Yep.
that, there are going to be some repercussions to your actions if you
Mhm.
didn't show up for your work. But in your job, it's like, well, I'll just get that done tomorrow, or I'll do it later, and that never happens.
Yeah. You also make me think, um, most people in a corporate job, you might be responsible for a department or a team, but you aren't often, unless you come from a VP, and even then you're kind of overseeing and not actively doing it. You're not doing customer service, marketing, product development, R&D, all of these things that you might have rock and rolled in one area, but now you're responsible for 4 or 5. And
Exactly.
that is very different.
They
Even
have
if
to,
you,
yeah.
yeah,
You
even
have
if
to
you
wear a lot of
hire people,
hats.
right? So yeah, being your own boss is not easy, but it's worth it.
Oh, definitely. I think that's probably one of the best things people can do for themselves to realize their worth and what they're truly capable of. Because once you start getting into that routine and you start, using the discipline, there's no limits for how much you can accomplish.
Yeah, and I would also add, um, just to really recognize the growth that happens, that has to happen. I think with that assumption is we think, oh, we're ready. And then we go, oh my gosh, because I always talk about the growth zone is the slow zone. When you're used to crushing it and all of a sudden you're like barely squishing things, it's so different. And you're like, I should be. And you beat yourself up unnecessarily because you're learning all of these new things. You're growing to have the capacity to be able to do all these other things or higher. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to talk about with assumptions is I talk and coach a lot about the difference between experts and masters. Experts are people who, they're really efficient. They get a lot of things done, but a problem with experts is they quit learning. They achieve what they know, and then they're just executing on what they know. And a master is always learning and is always curious. And assumptions often happen when we're in expert mode. I know this, I'm just going to do because I'm making the assumption that I'm doing things right. And what I have found is experts often look at things in the gestalt mode. They see patterns and not the details. And sometimes that's all you need. I don't want to say we need to go deep into the details, but we also need to be masters in our business on knowing what the details are or knowing how to do those. Because if not, we could be making incorrect assumptions, especially when you're talking about your customers. How often are we making an assumption on what customers know versus talking to them?
Right.
It's
That's huge.
yeah. Your job is
Especially
much easier if you're talking to customers than making crap up.
right, and even when creating like the sales part of the process as an entrepreneur, when you have to do the marketing, you have to know your customers. You can't just assume. And I've noticed that, and I've done that actually myself too, is where I just use my own pain and I thought that's it. And that I'm understanding my ideal client is me and my pain. But then you go out there and you notice, okay, there are common patterns, and that's
Mm-hmm.
super powerful, but you also have to address the individual. So working yourself and becoming that master and actually listening, it's a huge component of being a master.
Yeah, 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 and recognizing you're always growing.
Oh yeah, no
Yeah.
doubt, no doubt. It's all about who you become.
Yep. Yep. What's the next assumption that you had?
One of the biggest assumptions that entrepreneurs have is that others are extremely blessed and you were dealt the wrong hand,
Mm,
basically saying, oh, they have the money, they have the looks, they know the people, they were, raised with a silver spoon, or, whatever excuses,
mm,
just to keep yourself playing small, to
mm.
justify why those people are actually having success and you're not.
Wow. You just made me finish the rest of the sentence that I like to coach. I always say, never disqualify yourself, because that's what people do is they take themselves out of there. But now we can say, don't disqualify yourself based off of an assumption.
Yep, I love that.
Because you're right, is we think they're doing awesome, but we don't realize that that's just the facade of social media. They don't see the same struggles that everyone else is dealing with, or even if they are doing amazing, they had the same struggles.
Right.
And
And that was the next, the next assumption is,
mm,
judging based on what you see on social media.
mm,
Do your diligence and understand that some people literally just buy things or rent things to make you believe that, oh, they have this lifestyle so you can go buy their product.
we're not
And
going to do
it's really important to not allow what others have to create envy and jealousy and cause you to end up on the sidelines.
yeah. So I think it's safe to say we're not going to do any podcast promotions in front of Bentleys.
Well,
Yeah, maybe once we get there. But even then, yeah, that was funny. Yeah, I think that is absolutely true. That that people can do that. Have you ever heard of William King Hollis? He's like a motivational speaker. He does like one of these fearless motivation. Anyways, one of the things I love that he talks about is how often we spend time going through social media looking at other people's lives instead of our own lives. I think that's so powerful. And I think
Yeah.
so many people, they get this false sense of connection, but what they're getting just a false sense of fear of missing out, or this isn't me, and disqualifying themselves.
If you see the way I look at it, you can use it to quit the game, or to kind of make you fearful, or
Mhm.
you can use it as inspiration.
Yeah.
The meaning you give something is the most important aspect.
Yeah.
That I notice a lot of people, and this is what my work as a mindset coach is so fun, is because I get to explore
Mm.
what people do and why they do it.
Yeah.
And then when you understand why they do it, then teach them, help them transform it so they can use it to their advantage. Because I don't think all is bad. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, it's how I started. I was like really in love with looking at mansions. I really love, like, I was an interior designer a while back,
Mm.
almost 2 decades ago.
Yeah.
And I just really really love the whole interior design and the beauty that comes with the aesthetics of mansions.
Mm.
Now, I could use that to say poor me, or I can use it to say, okay, this is really what I strive for,
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it
right?
becomes a vision board thing. And
Exactly.
I was even thinking about just the whole concept with social media is I put on my reverse engineer hat. If I see someone that looks like they're doing great, I'm like, what's this person's messaging to resonate with people? Because you and I talked about in our first episode is the people part is so important, and we have a heart to serve. And if you find people are using language that resonates with people, you want to be able to do that so we can help see what the things are. So it's similar. I like what you say is, okay, what's the 5-year plan on the mansion?
Working on them.
Right. Exactly. You'll get there.
Right.
It's like, I don't have a mansion yet. I love yet. You'll hear me
Not
say yet.
yet.
Right.
Not yet. If you use the word not yet, or just say yet, then you're changing the whole meaning of it.
Absolutely. You got one more
Yes.
assumption?
Actually, this is huge, and I want people to really pay close attention to this. You cannot, based on your assumptions, dictate or predict what you're capable of based on your past results,
Mm.
especially for people that have been brought up in hard like environments, or have been have experienced some type of trauma, and haven't really been able to get out of it. That does not mean that you can't. Or maybe you've had a business and it failed, or whatever your situation may be. Don't judge where you've been to where you can go.
And I'll say the reverse too. Just because you've been successful in the past, you can't make the assumption that you will. One of the first businesses I did when I was in college, I was a branch manager um, selling some kitchen products, and I crushed it the first summer. And then they asked me to change my territories because someone was getting married and their new wife was there. So I said, sure. But I didn't put as much prep into the next summer. And I did like a quarter of the business because I went in there thinking I can ride the momentum that I had. But what I did is I didn't put in the effort and the energy that I had the first time. And I see that in small and medium sized businesses where especially when people get into leadership, is they might have been really awesome doing what they were doing. And then oftentimes people promote the high performers, but they don't have leadership training. And so these leaders just start making advice based off of when they used to do the work. But if you've been a leader for 5 to 10 years, you're no longer talking about current reality. You're giving advice based off of 5 to 10 years ago. You're no longer an expert. And so I think sometimes even past success creates assumptions that get dangerous for us. We kind of lose that hunger and that connection and that
Right.
learning piece.
And I love that. I love that perspective. I actually didn't really think about it. I think in the back of my mind, it kind of makes sense, but I really didn't verbalize it. So I want to thank you for actually bringing that up. And I invite people to take a look at it. Are you using your assumptions either in a positive or negative way? Are they hurting your results right now in your business?
Absolutely. So my assumption is everyone enjoyed this episode, and you'll be back for episode 3 next week. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. Go ahead and join our Facebook group. If you look up People, Purpose, Profits, Business Coaching on Facebook, we have a community of other listeners. You can be able to interact with Kat and I. Also, YouTube, same name. You could watch us on video, or if you don't like to look at our faces, you can do the podcast and listen to us that way, and subscribe whichever podcatcher of choice. So thank you for your listening. We want to hear from you so we can make this show be the most impactful 20, 30 minutes of your day, of your week, actually. Thank you.
See you
Bye-bye.
soon.